I'm going to discuss the very important subject of Halloween. We are coming into a time when many will celebrate Halloween. I want to make sure that I cover the subject matter so that we understand what Halloween is and the type of effects that it can have on people and what we as Christians can do during this time of year to help the cause of the gospel and to obey the Lord. So that said, Halloween, please look at the screen. We're turning your Bibles to Luke chapter 12. I'm going to read verse 5. But I will forewarn you whom you shall fear. Fear him which after he hath killed hath power to cast into hell. Yeah, I say unto you, fear him. I had no knowledge of this scripture as a young person growing up. I had personally assumed that when you die, you just go to heaven, or you go to a place called purgatory if you're particularly bad, to work off some of your issues before you go into heaven. So I never really understood the fear of the Lord because I'd never been really aware of the Word of God. So now that I am a Christian, maturing in my faith, I understand that God has all the power, and He has shared with me the realities of this world as He has those that are born again of the Spirit. And I have no fear of the devil or the fallen angels or the manifestations of horrific beings that exist here in this world. I have no fear of them whatsoever. But if it was suiting God's purpose, or if it will suit God's purpose, He could instill some fear in me for correction. But I fear God. I don't fear anything but God because of the chastening that was given to me and the endurance that it took and the realization that God has made all things and He has the power and there is none other but Him. So the fear that people should have would normally be directed towards God if they were Christians, if they had knowledge of the Scriptures and they were born again of the Spirit. And I think that's really the root cause of how our society becomes more and more paganized over time is people aren't getting saved, so we gravitate to the imaginations in our heart. And of course Lucifer exploits that, and the next thing you know, we've got pagan customs that are spreading more and more every day. The purpose of this sermon lesson is, first and foremost, what is Halloween? It's a good refresher. I'm not sure everybody really understands what Halloween really is. And I'm going to give some biblical references. I'm going to talk about the fascination with the occult that seems to be growing by the day in our world. And how did this fascination get fueled? Where did the monsters go? I'm going to ask a question. Where did the monsters go? And I'm going to use God's Word to do a little review on this. And then I'm going to talk about choices for Christians as it relates to Halloween, and then I'll give a conclusion. So I'm going to proceed. What is Halloween? First of all, I'm going to talk about trick-or-treating, which is a traditional Halloween custom, and then I'll get more into the definition of Halloween in subsequent slides here. And you can read the screen, but it says, in the evening before All Saints' Day, which is November 1st in the Catholic Church, children in costumes travel from house to house asking for treats with the phrase trick or treat. The treat is usually some form of candy, although in some cultures money is given instead. The trick refers to a threat usually idle to perform mischief on the homeowners or their property if no treat is given. And while the vast majority of people that hand out candy don't get vandalized, it does happen. And, you know, there's a lot of news articles on vandalism, either on Halloween or the night before Halloween. So this is not a good thing, first and foremost, even if it's completely, if it were separated completely from any religion or occult belief, it still has bad things associated with it. Some homeowners signal that they are willing to hand out treats by putting up Halloween decorations outside their doors. Others simply leave treats available on their porches for the children to take freely. Houses may also leave their porch light on as a universal indicator that they have candy. So I celebrated Halloween all the way up until I was a saved Christian in my early 40s. To me, it was a very fun celebration and something that I viewed as relatively harmless. I thought it was cute seeing the kids in their costumes, and for the most part, enjoyed the experience, both as a trick-or-treater, as a young person, and then as a parent taking my kids around as an adult. However, that all changed when I became born again, and God opened up my mind to what is really going on in this world. But I'm giving my source down at the bottom. That's from Wikipedia, and I'm going to continue here. My problem with trick-or-treating, based on what God's Word has taught me, and the conviction that I have, is that we tell our children at Christmas time about Santa, and at Easter about an Easter bunny. That's a popular secular tradition to do. We eventually are found out as deceiving our young ones with these customs. Eventually the children learn that this is nothing more than just a lie, a made-up belief to titillate them or give them extra joy, or whatever the reason is, for the purpose of giving treats or presents. But for Halloween, we tell children to dress up as something they do not really believe exists. I mean, a little kid really doesn't understand monsters and the reality as God teaches a mature Christian, and I don't think that's really what God wants either. I mean, the Word of God will pierce even a child who gets born again, and God will reveal things unto a child through His Word that are suitable for a child. And it probably doesn't involve scaring them with monsters. That can come over time, but everybody's individual experiences will vary. When I was young, I was told that we celebrate Halloween by the bishop of the Catholic Church that came to my church to frighten demons away. We dress up in scary outfits to frighten the demons, which is a Catholic word for devils, to clear the earth for All Saints' Day, so that we can celebrate All Saints' Day on November 1st without worrying about the devils being around. So, again, that was a silly lie told to me as a child. I don't have any resentment towards the bishop. He was in a delusion as well, So all these customs really are based on a friendly deception or a subtle deception that really plants the seed for problems later in life based on my own personal experiences. So you see the little photo on the screen of an alien giving a bear hug to a kid. One kid looks like he's dressed up either as a werewolf or a Sasquatch, and all that stuff. You can be a football player, a baseball player, whatever, but you're basically dressing up as something that you either don't believe exists or something that you're not. So there's subtle deception there. And then this deception ultimately goes up the chain to the most offensive to God when you become basically Lucifer's ministers who masquerade as they were ministers of righteousness. The ultimate deception that we have in the Christian community today is those witches and Satanists that are pretending to be Christians that are deceiving the adults. And a lot of that is because the Word of God has been virtually taken out of the world, and also in regular pop culture, we've all been desensitized towards making a joke out of spiritual evils that are very real and just making them into a fun pretend celebration. So what is Halloween? The Catholic roots of Halloween, the vigil of All Saints' Day. Although Halloween has been embraced by the secular world, its foundations are firmly rooted in Catholic tradition. Okay, and I'm not going to read every single word here. You guys can do that on the screen. But for sure, the Babylonian faith reigns over the kings of the earth and sets the customs in place on all levels for people to follow. Okay, quite frankly, I was taught as a child that Halloween is a religious celebration of the Catholic Church. Now, other Catholics listening, your experiences may vary, but I had an opportunity to get a pretty good Christian, or Catholic education before I got saved, and around the time when there wasn't so much propaganda from Vatican II seeping into pop culture yet. So I got a real good edification of real Roman Catholicism and what they really believe. Based on my understandings today, they've watered things down a little bit, much more ecumenical. It's a lot different now, I think, for young Catholics and what they're taught as opposed to what I was taught, say, 50 years ago. Okay, so my source on this information here is from a Vatican News website. So I'm not just giving somebody's random opinion here, but they clearly state that All Hallows Eve is a religious celebration of the Catholic Church. Okay, Christian Sam Hain. I've got my source that I'm going to cite here, but as Christianity gained a foothold in pagan communities, church leaders attempted to reframe Samhain as a Christian celebration, which again, in my opinion, goes back to the Church of Rome, as I'm talking about here. Based on this source, the first attempt was by a pope, okay? And they used to make fire festivals, and they would offer soul cakes, okay? And eventually this custom, according to our history now, how much we can believe our history is, you know, kind of suspect, but this is a little bit of history from history.com, and it's interesting that a secular source cites the Catholic Church again, so it's all very consistent that Halloween is a religious celebration prior to All Saints' Day in order to clear the earth ultimately of the demons of the Catholic Church, which is a silly thing. The only thing that devils are afraid of, they also believe and tremble, is the Lord Jesus Christ, the Most High God. That's it. There is no other source of fear for creation. So treats at Halloween, begging at the door, grew from, according to this source, from an ancient English custom of knocking at doors to beg for a soul cake, in return for which the beggars promised to pray for the dead of the household. So that's interesting because I believe God talks about this in Scripture. Okay, and you can see the source there is another Catholic education source. God says in Jeremiah chapter 7, he's talking about the heathens on the earth that are not listening to his word. The whole chapter is dedicated to that. He says, the children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven. If you're not a saved Christian, you're burning incense to Baal. Your prayers are going to a Babylonian deity, not the Most High if you're a pagan. Okay? And to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. God hates pagan customs. Makes it very clear here. And that type of sentiment from God and the fear that he put in me changed my life and what I do in my daily walk as a Christian. The Catholic Bible, interesting enough, says they call it Canticles, or the Song of Songs. They don't call it the Song of Solomon in most of the Catholic Bibles. It says in chapter 2, verse 5, strengthen me with raisin cakes. So the queen is asking to be strengthened with raisin cakes. She wants to receive cakes. Refresh me with apples. Does that remind you of what happened in Genesis chapter 3? For I am sick with love, which is not a good thing. Jesus came to heal the sick. So as a saved Christian, I can read the Catholic Bible and see exactly what's going on here, and it all glorifies God's word. God tells the Christians what's happening in the world, and then you simply go and you see everything validates God's word. And he doesn't need validation, but what he speaks is true. The rest of us are liars. So I take it all back to what the word of God says. And I believe Jeremiah chapter 7 is just another reference to a pagan custom that has evolved into Halloween trick-or-treating. But this is just our fallen human nature. So biblical references to monsters, because Halloween is, for the most part, pretending to be scared and dressing up as monsters, which I don't think hardly anyone really believes in real monsters. It's just fun to pretend they exist. But God talks about, and I talked about this recently, her young ones also suck up blood, and where their slain are, there is he, the horse leech. But God's word has so much power, he can give a spiritual lesson talking about real things. Are there real vampires in this world? Do I believe there's real vampires? Absolutely. And I'm not going to waste my breath or my time telling people or trying to prove that they exist. I'll tell you one thing, they're here on earth, and they masquerade as humans, and you're never going to hear about this, nor should you seek it out, but they exist, and there's really not much else to be said other than take everything back to Scripture. In Isaiah chapter 23, God's talking about men who howl, or people that howl. Are there werewolves in this world? Well, can evil spirits manifest themselves in different forms, especially those that are abominations to God? Absolutely. Are they here? Well, I'll tell you one thing. I believe there's many, many, many real werewolves that are spiritual creatures that can come out of thin air and appear and terrorize people, and if they don't have the protection of the blood of Jesus, at some point they're going to be vulnerable to getting attacked. So be very warned that God does not describe evil as a joke. It's very real, and we are in a world where the days are evil according to God. Sea monsters. Most secular people would laugh at the idea of a sea monster. I can't tell you how many countless times I've been told about accounts of people that have seen sea monsters, unnatural creatures that exist that defy anything that we've categorized in our scientific places of learning. And I've heard direct accounts of saltwater sea monsters as well as freshwater sea monsters. And I've been at places where they've been sighted. And again, what God has taught me is this is just another spiritual manifestation that exists in this evil world. And of course, in Mark chapter 5, and all the devils besought him, saying, "Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them." You know, they were talking to Jesus Christ. The devils also believe and tremble. They know they have no power against Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ gives born-again Christians all power over the power of the enemy. So, you know, the devils are here, and I am not going to take my time to try to convince people outside of the Word of God that they exist. Let's just leave it at this. God will reveal things to those whom he chooses, and I don't want to fixate on the realities of monsters in this world and make that a basis of this sermon lesson. But I tell you one thing, that to some believers God reveals things that would make most people scream in fear if they really understood and believed. So be forewarned. The idea that you know, monsters are pretend is something that we've been conditioned in through the media. So leads to fascination in the occult. Young people are targeted specifically. Vampires, werewolves, sea monsters, and other evil beings. Are they make-believe or are they real? Probably most people think they're make-believe. There's quite a few people that believe they're real. But then, unless you really experience something, or if God opens your eyes up for His purpose, you really don't have any great concern. But if you look at today, you know, it's nothing for people to put on a witch's hat. You know, a lot of people think that's just cute. Harry Potter and that whole book series and film series has influenced countless young people to get them more fascinated with the occult, where we know there's real spiritual power that Satan's been given to deceive the entire world. And, you know, dressing up as a werewolf or a vampire, you know, all you're doing is dressing up as a real creation that is going to be damned into the lake of fire for an eternity. So it's not a pretend situation at all. And we've just been desensitized to become fascinated with things that God tells us about in His Word. So have people been desensitized by the occult acceptance of pop culture? It's endless. I don't know how many, when I flip on the television, which I don't watch a lot of TV, but I see a huge percentage of programming that has some type of an occult theme to it. Ancient aliens, paranormal caught on film, even the movies, you know, just the vampires, the werewolves, the alien theme is overwhelming. The magic spells, you know, on teeny TV series like Charmed, where you've got 3 witches that are the main characters. You know, this has been a long time coming. As long as television's been around, you know, there's been occult messages that have ramped up and made everybody at ease, just accepting that it's kind of a cute thing, when God absolutely tells us that He hates these customs, that in believing that monsters are pretend, you're disbelieving in the Word of God, is what it really comes down to. My fascination with the occult, I was never one that was drawn to playing with Ouija boards or casting spells, but, you know, thanks to God, He never gave me an inherent fascination with that. But I watched my share of monster movies. They're probably my favorite programming as a kid. When I was a young child, I was dressed up as Satan for one of my first trick-or-treating events that I participated in, and I never really had any idea about going to a place called the Lake of Fire, because I was told as a Catholic that that was the only true faith on earth, and that as long as I behaved myself pretty well, my time in purgatory would be minimal. And so I had to rely on my fleshly abilities, which around the time of confirmation, let's say around the age of 10 or 11, you start to have a harder time with your flesh, and you lose faith in many cases. In my case, I was done with Catholicism by about the age of 18, right around my high school graduation. I honored my parents by still going to Catholic church when I was convicted to do so, but I really never believed at that point in the doctrine of the infallibility of the papacy when they speak on church doctrine. I thought, this is ridiculous, because the Pope is just a man, and I never thought of him as evil, but to say that you're infallible and can change precepts of the Most High God, I thought that was ridiculous. And of course, I lived in a house where there were evil spirits and devils in the house, and they tormented my family, causing devastation that I don't want to even speak about right at the moment. I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but, you know, the older I got, the more devastation I saw of the effects of the occult in my immediate family, as well as just people that I would meet as well. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And when I got saved, God broke my fascination down and taught me the realities of what's going on here. And now I have no fear or no titillation of the occult. I accept things as being very real because the Lord has spoken it. I'm going to share a little bit about in the Catholic Church. A lot of times, you know, you dress up as a witch or a little devil, and they think it's just all harmless and cute. I'm saying that as a former Catholic. Your experiences, if you were raised Catholic, may vary from mine. This is Corpus Christi Parish, Halloween Mass, October 28, 2006. You can see the screenshots that I give here. Eucharistic ministers. It's not always the priest that hands out communion. You also have Eucharistic ministers in Catholicism, and in this case, one is dressed as a devil, passing out what they believe is the literal flesh of their Christ to feed on. They call their Christ Jesus Christ, because the devil wants to be like the Most High. And then you can read what it says on the screen there, and see the delusion that people are in, and there's my source if you want to watch this on YouTube. Some additional information here. You can see that a lady dressed as a witch is singing a responsorial psalm, and they talk about as goblins and ghouls that they're dressed up as. We raise one voice, and they're going to say, "Our Father." So again, there's the source. My next discussion is going to be, where did the monsters go? This is all about Halloween and the idea that little kids can dress up in cute outfits. Some of them may be as little witches or devils or werewolves. Some of them may be their favorite sports player. But we're all under the delusion that it's a harmless celebration. Where did the monsters go? I hardly know it. I can't think of too many people that I know that really believe monsters exist as it relates to what God talks about in His Word. So where did they go? The next slide I'm going to comment on. Okay, if we break it down to God's Word, I've got the verse in the far left column, God's Word, which is the AV 1611 Bible in English, and then the New American Bible of the Roman Catholic Church in the column next to the AV 1611, and then the NIV, the New King James, and then the English Standard Version of 2001. So first of all, in Lamentations, God talks about sea monsters. Okay? Now there's a spiritual lesson to all this stuff, but when God says sea monsters, He's not just saying that to entertain Himself or us. They are real creatures that can be spiritually based, okay? Or there could be natural sea monsters. We don't know. Men can only discover. Our science is only as good as what God allows it to be. The God of this world, Lucifer, is far more powerful than mankind can even comprehend. But there are sea monsters according to God. But the idea of a sea monster is an abomination to the secular world because they changed the word to jackals. An animal that is nothing like a sea monster. Okay? Why is that? And you wonder why people are just in a state of disbelief about everything. This is part of the attack. This is part of what allows pop culture to introduce children to the occult through Harry Potter and alien shows and all this. There's no devil in the land of heathens. Or if he exists, he's just not a real threat to anyone, apparently. In Isaiah chapter 13, satyrs, which are a human-goat hybrid. Satyrs are extremely real, okay? God says it, the Lord has spoken it. I don't want anybody to believe me, but the Catholics retained the word satyrs. However, I'm going to call them harlot children, just change the word to wild goats. It's no longer a human-goat hybrid, which is a spiritual creature. It is now just wild goats. Wild goats are not monstrous or evil spiritual manifestations. They're completely different from a satyr. Okay, in 2 Samuel chapter 23, lion-like men. Okay, people possessed by evil spirits can shapeshift. We know that from Scripture. Daniel chapter 4 is one area that brings to my remembrance. Evil spirits or angels as well can take on forms to make us think they're humans, or they can shapeshift into human hybrids. Lion-like men. Men with, who knows, long, formidable teeth, maybe nails like lions. God doesn't really go on and tell us much other than we know from Daniel chapter 4 that a man can grow nails like claws, like a bird's claws. So lion-like men has now been changed to sons of Ariel, or mightiest warriors, or lion-like heroes, or Ariels of Moab. So the idea of lion-like men has been watered down and diminished in subsequent Bibles. Numbers chapter 13, God talks about giants, which are very real, and I believe there's real giants, who knows how tall, 15 feet, 100 feet, here in the earth today. But the Catholic Church calls them Nephilim, and for the most part, with the exception of the New King James Bible, you'll see the word Nephilim in modern Bibles. And in my opinion, it's to get people thinking more about aliens from a place far, far away than the evil that is present in the earth today. We are a stationary earth with a firmament over us, and the heaven of heavens is above the firmament, but everything is contained beneath the firmament, okay, or in the firmament. The sun and the moon rotate in the firmament, okay. The earth is stationary, and giants is what God tells us in Numbers chapter 13. Never uses the word Nephilim. That's a Roman Catholic Babylonian term, like rapture and like demons. It's another word that the Church of Rome throws out there and gets many, many people using. Isaiah chapter 14, Lucifer, the devil, has been changed to the title of morning star by the Catholic Church because Jesus Christ is the morning star, and Lucifer is the Jesus Christ of the Catholic Church. They even sing a song about that I've watched on video. I think it was filmed at the Vatican. The NIV, morning star. The New King James, which claims to sometimes follow the received text, says Lucifer, and then the English Standard Version says Day Star, which is another title for the Most High. So, for the most part, modern Bibles do not use the word Lucifer. Apparently, they don't feel there's really a problem with a devil deceiving the whole world. I don't know what their thoughts are there. Malachi chapter 1, dragons. Dragons are another creature God describes, both in a spiritual sense and in talking about like the devil, or he uses it in a natural sense in terms of real dragons, which may be spiritual manifestations of fallen angels. But nevertheless, dragons are very real, according to God, and it's been changed to jackals again. So, sea monsters have been changed to jackals, and so have dragons, according to the worldly Bibles that we have today. Isaiah chapter 14, you have a cockatrice, which is a hybrid between a snake and, let's say, a cockerel or a rooster. Horrific creature. Don't know how big it is, but it's definitely a flying serpent. And the modern Bibles just say either adder or viper. You know, it's no longer a hybrid. So they're trying to hide anything that is a hybrid between a human and a fallen angel, which are abominations to God. They're trying to diminish that. They're trying to change the truth of God's word and get us fascinated with the idea of aliens being the root cause of fear and evil rather than the devil and his angels in the world today. So I wanted to give some biblical references here to show how modern Christianity, which is not Christianity, has dumbed down in these dumb idols and removed the reality of monsters from the Bible so that we could continue to celebrate things like Halloween without any real fear that there's really any monsters out there. That's my opinion. Choices for Christians. Halloween is an opportunity for Christians to witness to trick-or-treaters by either not celebrating or by using tracts. That's a personal conviction, and everybody needs to pray and get guidance from the Holy Spirit on this because of the importance of how we react as Christians. You can hand out Bible apologetics if you're convicted. Make sure it's the right Bible and the right apologetic, and God is convicting you to do that. My personal conviction is to not hand out candy, and we don't really participate at all. This comes from the mingling of an event with disbelief in Christian precepts. Halloween to me is a religious celebration. The little kids in my neighborhood, sweet children for the most part, have no idea what's going on. They certainly look cute in their costumes, and in some way it makes me sad to rob them of any joy, but at the same time, as a Christian, I love my neighbor. I don't want to endorse a paganized Christian celebration. It's really and Catholicism is not Christianity. The problem I have is they try to make it into a religious celebration and call it All Saints Day and celebrate Halloween to clear the earth of demons by wearing costumes. Instead of being a born-again believer, you just put on a silly outfit and apparently you can frighten away demons. And the poor kids that are celebrating, they have no idea what they're doing. And it's just a shame. So I still remember the people 3 doors down from me in 1970. 1970 is the first time I became aware of it. Back in St. Louis, Missouri, they turned their lights off and they didn't celebrate. I don't know what religion they were. I'm assuming they were either real Christians or possibly professing Christians that just had a conviction. But I'll never forget that they made an impression on me. Even though I didn't agree with it at the time, I was taught it was strange, I still remember those people. And my hope and prayers are that by not participating in this, that the children in my neighborhood will remember my family and that God will guide them to all truth and by His power and His will. And if He convicts us to witness to them, then that's what we'll do. So I'm going to continue by saying, in conclusion, hell is no joke and will be filled with fallen angels, evil spirits, devils, and people. There will be no trick-or-treating in hell, and the lost need to be witnessed to now. Non-participation by Christians can make a lasting impression on the lost, as I talked about. But if somebody is truly convicted to hand out a tract, that may be a blessing to an individual as well. No one ever gave me a tract when I was a little kid. Maybe I should have read a tract about that contained the pure Word of God, but the timing wasn't there. So pray about it. I just wanted this to be a review session for something that is going on now that we as Christians all need to have an awareness of, and we need to act responsibly. Thank you for watching. God bless.